And welcome back, everybody. Today we have a face that most of you will probably recognize, NightmareMedic. We first connected on TikTok. Oh, fuck, I don't remember, a couple months ago. And back when you first started putting videos out, and we've just kind of stayed in each other's circles since. And I think today's gonna be fun. I want to talk about the veterans topic because you've brought that up quite a bit. But just a general conversation about the state of EMS and what we're all trying to achieve. So, one tell us. yeah. For those who don't know you, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, talk about your career, however much detail you want to go into.
Sure. My name's Justin, NightmareMedic on TikTok. As far as my career goes, it's pretty well the same as everybody else's. Spent some time in the military, got out and spent some time in law enforcement, and then as I finished paramedic school, I told myself I was going to make the choice of law enforcement or paramedicine. So I did my EMT school when I was in Afghanistan, which was quite the interesting experience because we didn't have hospitals and we didn't have ambulances. So my clinical time was in a combat surgical hospital. So you can imagine what kind of patients came in there. And then my ride time was with the flight medics on the Blackhawks from my EMT school. So that was kind of neat.
Damn.
Yeah, so
Got jealous, honestly.
yeah, I saw some pretty gnarly things, and nothing I hadn't seen already. But as far as the medical side of things and treating that stuff, it was pretty neat to watch and do, and just have that experience. Then I got back to the States and kind of did it part time here and there while I was doing some other odd jobs and then law enforcement, and then kind of just like everybody else, the normal grind. I stayed in EMT for several years. I was an IFT EMT for a long time, and that was kind of my step into full-time EMS, is doing IFT stuff as a basic. And life happens, you have kids, and you're settling down and all that kind of stuff. So medic school didn't happen as quickly as I wanted it to, but I finally got it done. I worked for a pretty busy ambulance service. In perspective, it's probably not as busy as some places, but 150,000 calls a year.
That's pretty fucking busy.
Yeah, we were getting after it day in and day out, and finished medic school right before COVID happened. So call it what you want, COVID medic, I guess, or just get really good at respiratory medic when COVID happened. So worked all the way through that, and kind of have always had the dream of doing flight ever since I got to do my EMT clinicals on a helicopter. So flight's been my goal the whole time, and I'm 15 years into this now, and I still haven't made it, but I'm still chasing that goal, and haven't made it because of life, not because of failing to get there, but just life, and then obviously the stringent requirements of school and time and all that kind of stuff. So took 2 years and came off the road, off the truck, went to a level 1 trauma center to work in the ER, and I have to tell you that was probably the biggest change for me, and one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had, and it forever changed me as a paramedic. Just first of all, understanding that you're not the smartest guy in the room, and then learning new things and learning old things new ways. It was an incredible experience, but I knew that the hospital experience was something that the helicopters really like to see. So I just did it on my own. I wasn't forced into it, anything like that, and I had a blast. But I'm back out on the road now for county service, and pretty run-of-the-mill. The only difference is my first one I've ever worked with a union, and to be honest with you, I think the union is probably one of the best things that I've ever worked for, because it does protect us against a lot of the toxicity that we tend to experience in EMS. CCP a couple years ago, and just recently dropped my first application for flight. So,
Hell yeah. What was COVID like for you then? Because that's a hell of an introduction to being a brand new baby medic.
Well, for me, it was terrifying. On top of all of the, am I going to bring this home and kill my family type stuff, on top of all of those emotions, when it initially hit and we had no idea what it was, when I finished my paramedic test and they asked what's your biggest weakness my mentors and stuff, and I said respiratory. I have no clue how I'm going to do respiratory, and I was like, I still don't understand the decision-making process of taking over someone's airway that's alive, awake, and talking to me. So I was terrified, and then like all of a sudden we have this respiratory pandemic going on. So it was kind of the ring of fire, I guess, because at the beginning of COVID, we were tubing everybody in the field. We were doing literally anything and everything to just keep people alive. So
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, that I had just started working at because I'd done, 911 is the bread and butter of my career up to that point. I just started at a hospital-based, true interfacility agency, not just a combo granny shuffle, but actual critical care teams, PICU, NICU teams, all that stuff. And COVID then hit right away. And I was like, man, I was coming here for a break. Like, what the fuck? I was looking forward to a vacation from 911, not this bullshit. So, yeah, now we can laugh at it. At the time, it was like, oh my God, please make it stop.
Sure.
So, something that you have hit on a lot in the bigger videos that you've done has been mental health, and specifically how EMS relates to veterans and active duty military and so forth. Tell me, what do you think it is that we are missing? Like in our regular EMS education, what are we not preparing people for to deal with that particular cross-section of patient?
I think it's a great question. In the mental health, veterans, all of that is something that I have dedicated my life and career to since getting out of the Army. In every way possible. It may not seem like it, but those are things that I wake up on the daily, trying to, and just asking myself, what am I going to change about it today? As a person that struggled very, very heavily with mental health issues when I got back, and everything from PTSD to survivor's guilt to everything. I'm still a very anxious person. Most of the time I just can hide it very well. But so that's just something that in my mind, I can help that, so I'm gonna. As far as the veteran EMS thing, I think it starts with the fact that my PTSD is no different than your PTSD. And people tend to really forget that what an EMS person sees in their day-to-day life, or those hard calls, or those ones that really bring you to your knees, it doesn't do anything different to your brain than combat did to my brain. And we tend to, the society tends to look at me as a veteran and say, you're supposed to have PTSD. And then they look at EMS personnel and they're like, you're supposed to be able to deal with it. That's your job. So it's a really weird paradigm, because we're supposed to be the heroes on the outside and kissing babies and getting cats out of trees and everything, but they forget about that side of things. And there's just, the studies are out there and the education is out there. It's just that it's so focused around the military veterans, and of course it should be, right? We see a lot of terrible things in war. That we forget about the EMS side of things, where we also see terrible things in EMS. And when I'm talking to my students, I tell them it starts to wear on you very quickly that everybody that you meet at your job is sick, dying, hurt, or having the worst day of their life. We don't meet happy people that call 911. You know what I mean?
Not usually, no.
Yeah, and then, somebody's child is hurt or sick or dying or something like that, and chemically what that does to the brain is very akin to what combat does to the brain. So I think that's where it starts, and I think that's where the disconnect is between like the veteran side of things and the EMS side of things.
Well, I don't have military experience. I have lots of friends and family who are military, but I've personally never experienced it. And I have no problem admitting that, no, and not in a trauma comparing way, because that doesn't do anybody any good. But I would think it's a different kind of trauma. Yes, it affects your brain similar ways, but watching somebody that you have bonded with for months, or even years, get their head blown off or whatever the case may be next year, I imagine that is just a different breed of thing to deal with than, I can depersonalize from the patients that I see, the kids that are hurt, whatever. Not that I don't care, but in that moment I have to disconnect from it. I imagine that's a
Yeah,
lot
of course.
harder when it's people that you know that you care about who are being hurt around you. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it
personally have a
is.
higher respect for y'all because of that.
Yeah, it is, and I also want to throw back at that specific ideology that at least I don't know what the number is. I have no research to back this, but I'm going to throw a number out there. Let's say 40% of the people in our job now are working in their hometowns with people they grew up with and their families
Fair,
and things like that. So
fair.
when you talk about me having bonded with a guy for months or years or whatever, and you watch them hurt or dying, same thing, right?
True, true.
But to your point, I agree. The depersonalization, the I don't work in a place that I grew up in, so it's easier for me to do that.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm 2 states away from where I grew up, so chances of me running into people that I grew up with is pretty slim. What do you think is so practically speaking, as far as you have a veteran who's in crisis, and you have a brand new baby EMT who is trying to connect with this person, is trying to engage with them, and not make the situation more volatile. What's your number one advice to that brand new baby EMT who doesn't know what the hell is going on?
My biggest piece of advice that I give to anybody is their scene size up. Just the way you size it up is not just look around, look at all the things that could hurt you, this and that, but also look around and look at the people that are there with you. If you have a police officer that's a veteran, or you have a partner that's a veteran, somebody like that. Veterans don't only connect with veterans, but for fuck's sake, it's easier to
Right.
connect with another vet, right, or somebody that's
Hmm.
had that experience, especially when they're in crisis, because my generation of veterans a little bit different than like the Vietnam veterans, and
Hmm.
PTSD is the same no matter what generation you are. However, the experiences differ
Yeah.
a little bit. But you've seen a veteran in crisis before that's really really not in the present time,
Hmm.
and it almost takes somebody that's been there and done that, can speak their language. That's what I always use. I can speak their language. I can talk to them like a veteran should, because we have our own silly little language that we, just the ways we talk about things, or throwing acronyms at each other, this and that. I can understand it, right? And then thankfully, or not, however you want to look at it, what I went through with my own experience is very similar to a lot of those guys. Just
Hmm.
not on the same level and not on the same time frame. So I can get down in the mud in their brain with them. So the scene size up and getting the right person in front of them is the most important.
Hmm.
Put your ego away. It doesn't matter if you're the lead on the call, quote unquote, whatever. You've got to put the right person in front of them, and it's safer for everybody to include the patient to do that.
Something that we run into a lot, at least in the area I work, is well, using the county I work in as an example, the ambulance service that runs 911, they have a lot of brand new people coming out on the street. I mean, we're talking 18, 19, 20-year olds, and they're brand new certified EMTs, and sometimes they're with a driver who doesn't know the first
Hmm.
thing about any of this crap. They're both young. And so I guess that's more the kind of group I'm appealing to is, you know, these
Sure.
people, it's very easy for them to get confrontational because they're already nervous. They're already like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm in charge now. So that's kind of more the people I'm gearing that question towards from a,
Yeah. And I would say just take it slow, and just understand that you have to take it slow. You're going to be you may be on scene for an extended period of time, and it's one of those things where we have to move at the speed of the veteran. Um, and I say that gingerly, but for safety reasons. You think about a normal person in a specific crisis and a veteran in a specific crisis, and I think I talked about this in one of my videos, that veterans, we are trained to do violent things to people, whether we like it or don't like it. We're trained that way, and it's so trained into us that if you've ever seen a dementia patient that's not on this planet 90% of the time, you start talking army with them, and he knows exactly. I can remember my serial number. Sorry, I can
you're okay.
remember the serial number off my weapon. I can remember this. I can remember that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So they can also remember the training that was indoctrinated into them over and over and over and over again, because it's never going to leave us. Me personally, I can still take a weapon and put it into my shoulder the same way that I did 10 years ago, and I haven't done it in 10 years, so just got to understand, you just got to take it slow and be safe for everybody, and understand that, yes, you may have dealt with this type of crisis before, but it's different when a guy is a lot more dangerous or has the capacity to be a lot more dangerous.
Now, with the, it's funny. Little side note. I actually had a guy that I used to hang out with years ago who was a former ranger, and he was a little guy, and he was pretty jovial. He wasn't the kind of person who was like always burned out, grimacing at everybody. But there was just one time, like, I playfully came up behind him and, like, popped his shoulder, and the way he whipped around and looked at me, I was like, "Oh, sorry." He's like, "Don't do that again.
Yeah.
That's not okay." I was like, "Cool, sorry."
Yeah, it's actually that's probably one of the biggest things for me is if I don't know you're there, let me know you're there before you touch me, something like that, and then I'm cool. I'm also a very jovial guy. I like to have fun. I'm upbeat and obnoxious with everybody. And it's kind of a joke to me now how easily I jump scare. And everybody's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry." And I'm like, that. It's actually kind of funny. But it's usually from directly behind me and I don't see you. You can't do it to me. And that's what, gets me that shot of adrenaline, things like that. I've even had to tell my kids, because my daughters, they do it all the time. They come up and they run and jump, "Dad," and they jump on top of me. And I don't see them coming. And it gives me that, like, instant tachycardia and that shot of adrenaline in my blood. I'm like, "Girls, you've got to stop doing that." Like, it cannot happen anymore, so
Yeah. I I had made that mistake many, many, many years ago, and now, like, no, it's not rooted in any kind of combat training or anything, but I don't like being surprised. I don't like people coming up behind me and just out of nowhere popping my head or no, not okay. Now, I want to flip the other question a little bit. Talking to people who have combat experience, who are dealing with PTSD from combat, that are now willingly coming into EMS. What kind of struggles are they facing? Obviously there's a social dynamic, but from a mental health perspective, what are the things that they maybe aren't prepared for or aren't thinking about coming into this?
Yeah, it's tough, and it takes a really strong-minded individual. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I was strong enough minded when I started it, but I just had to work hard at it and dig deep. But mentally, whether you have dealt with your combat stress or not, you got to understand that it's a different type of stress, and it's just going to pack right on top of what you already have there. So my advice, is to make sure, even if you're still working through things, make sure you know what you're picking up and putting on your shoulders. And a lot of us military guys can carry a lot of weight on our shoulders.
Yeah.
During the height of the wars, we were carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And the one thing that we have a very hard time dealing with is heartbreak, and this job can be heartbreaking at times. And just the things that we see, and it's a new emotion that we don't always deal with very well, because it was driven out of us to have that type of emotion, you know what I mean? So just the little things like that, just understand what you're getting into, and understand that in a lot of ways it's very similar to the military. We have hours and hours and hours of boredom, and then 10 minutes of sheer terror, so it's very similar. So a lot of guys are very attracted to this line of work, but emotionally it's different when you're out dealing with sick people versus, I can't shoot at the problem and kill it. I've got to fix it, and I've got to do something to help, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just different. I don't know if I have a great explanation for it, but I know that I have fought very, very hard to stay mentally on top of my game with this job. And I have a wonderful partner now. She's absolutely amazing. And I was talking to her, just kind of one of those late night 2 a.m. talks out on the picnic bench outside the fire station. And I said, after 15 years of doing this, and several years in the Army, 2 deployments, I said, I think I have to be honest with myself that maybe this shit's starting to wear on me a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was a humbling conversation for me to have. And I love my job, and I'm not burnout. I'm kind of over that burnout phase of my career and everything. There are days that it's harder to come to work and do what I have to do. And I was like, maybe that's it. That after this many years of doing this type of stuff, that it's just wearing on me.
Yeah, it's this weird sensation of, like, I do love it, but there's something about working in it that just gets old, and it's not as satisfying. It's not as
Yeah,
engaging,
I agree.
interesting. Like I get that. I get that. Talk to me about healthy coping mechanisms, stuff that works for you specifically, and stuff that maybe people aren't recommending or trying enough.
Um, I think probably the most important thing is to realize that this is our job and not us.
Hmm.
I again, I've had a pretty similar career to most EMTs, medics, firefighters, police, all that kind of stuff, where the career becomes my personality. Especially as a young guy, you want to wear all the cool guy gear and the radio straps and the best boots and you know the guy,
Oh yeah.
and and I never was a big gear guy, but I at one point in my career early on, I was taking my radio home. Pager was always on, this and that, and I had to separate myself from it and really tell myself that when I'm gone, and I don't do paramedicine outside of doing paramedicine. Because me as a person, I like to hunt, I like to fish, I like to ride motorcycles, I like to do all that kind of stuff, and I had to get back to doing that outside of work. I'm not out constantly looking for the car crash I can get out on and flex my nurse, and whoops, whoops. Yeah, I'm just not out looking for that kind of stuff anymore. Certainly, if something bad is happening around me, I'll certainly help. But it's just, I don't. It's not that I don't like doing my job. I just don't like doing it when I'm trying to do fun stuff. You know.
Right. What do you think about? Because this is a topic that even I go back and forth on, as far as what are we doing right in EMS as far as managing mental health, or what are we missing? Because I personally, and this is controversial, I'm not a huge fan of. Let me word this carefully. I'm not a huge fan of the peer support group model as the primary means of managing mental health and critical incident stress. I feel like there's a time where we can almost rely on each other a little too much. And that's where a lot of trauma bonding and bad coping mechanisms come in, because we're not trained in this.
Hmm.
But there's a place for it too. Like there is a place for the bonding and just the, letting off some steam and getting it off our chest, and that's fine. What do you think we should be doing? What are the things that we should be implementing?
I don't know if I have a perfect answer to that, but it's funny
No.
as you were starting to ask this question, how similarly we thought about things, and I kind of, in my mind, said what you just said. I personally am in the I hate critical incident stress debrief boat. I hate it. I think it's awful. It's terrible. You have somebody that may or may not be involved in your company come in, sit you all in a kumbaya circle and say, talk it out, and it becomes a bitch session more than it does
Hmm.
really working through the trauma. Because in the end, yes, on paper, theoretically, talking about it in front of everybody should help, but it doesn't. Anybody that's ever
No.
been through that, it doesn't. It ends up being more embarrassing or, emotionally charged, things like that. So I think that specific model is awful. Do I have a perfect answer for it? No. I think peer support groups can be good if they're done correctly. For example, the company I work for, it's very private, and the peer support group watches for the hard call or this or that, and they
Hmm.
will reach out to you via text message, say, hey, sounds like you had a hard call, text this number back, or they have a specific number that they do. It's not like personal phone or
Hmm.
whatever. Text it back if you need anything, and nobody knows about it. And then the peer support, and it's true peer support. It's not,
Hmm.
you know, uh, most of the critical incident things I've been through has been all the EMS people in a room, and then a state trooper comes in to do it. Somebody who's doing that job but not doing our job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's true peer support. Somebody that works for our company and is in the same ambulances that we were in and in the same population and things like that. And it's more 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 or whatever. So
Hmm.
whatever they. Um, so I think the CISD model is terrible. I think that pooling of resources. And giving those resources out as needed, because also the like here's a pin board on the wall of our company with every mental health resource that's in the county or the state or whatever. Nobody looks at that crap. It's like
Yeah.
looking at a union board. Nobody looks at that. So just having that, and um, I enjoy our model because it's what I'm currently in now, and there's certainly better ones out there, but I think that the current way that we're doing it is not good as a whole, as a industry.
Now, I get that. So that question was more framed in a formal sense. What formally should we be doing different? What do you see on a cultural level? And obviously, the caveat to this is there's a huge amount of variety
Hmm.
across the country about this. But from your anecdotal experience, culturally, how are we handling this stuff right? How are we handling it wrong?
I think we're handling it wrong in the sense that it's the way it's always been, right? It's the same thing. It's not any different than the military, right? You're weak if you show weakness. And shit. I mean, forever in EMS, it's been the same way.
Hmm.
Oh, you're too weak to get in the ambulance, then I got no use for you. You know,
Yeah.
we've got hours to fill, we've got ambulances to fill, we got calls to run. And you're too weak to do that. So in my own experience, anecdotally, whatever you want to call it, that's what we're doing wrong. Like, we've got to stop that. But what we're doing right now is there are a lot of us that are stomping ground trying to change that culture, and understanding that it doesn't mean the end of you. It means you just got to take a knee and take a breath for a minute, and then you can get back in the ambulance. And understanding that allowing people to take that breath is, in the long run, going to fill that seat a lot longer than not. So it's just probably within the last 5 years we've really started to see an uptake in the mental health side of EMS, and the acknowledgement that what we do is traumatizing to anyone, trained or not trained. So I'm really excited to see how far it goes, and I'm going to continue driving hard into it because of my career and experience. But I know that the generation following me is probably going to be the ones that really settle it in and solidify it. So I'm going to do what I can for now, and help them along their way.
I think the biggest fear I have with how we currently do things is we end up encouraging a little bit of a victim culture where it's look at me, look at my trauma, look how bad it is. Oh my God, we're overworked, underpaid, but it, it's not that's okay, it's not wrong, but
Hmm.
we're doing this look at me, look at me, look at me. And one, it's just kind of obnoxious. But two, when you actually want to sit down with people and have a real conversation with them saying, hey, okay, you don't like
Yeah.
how you feel. You don't like how your life's going. Well, here's some ways you can change it and take responsibility for it. Oh, well, I can't.
Oh
I
my
just, I
gosh.
can't do that. I can't fucking deal with it. I can't. But
Dude,
man,
I say this all the time, and I'll scream it from a mountain that, like, my generation of veterans are so bad about that. Like, don't do this, don't shoot fireworks around me, don't, I need this, I need that. And I'm like, well,
hmm
nobody owes you nothing. And, like, we volunteered. It's not like we were drafted or anything like that. Nobody owes you nothing. And then, same thing. You're exactly right. The poor me attitude, and oh my gosh, the victim mentality. And I'm like, what are you doing to fix that? Because I can't help you if you don't first take the first steps. It's just, I can't walk for you. You have to still
hmm
pick your legs up and put them down. You still have to drive forward. And it drives me bonkers because there's sometimes where you try and you try and you try to help, and there's always something. It's bigger than this, or it's worse than that. And I'm like, you're not the only one that's ever had this problem in the world.
You're not
And I
fucking
wish I could say
special.
that without being a jerk. Yeah, 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 exactly. I wish I could say that without being a jerk because I genuinely care about people. But sometimes you just got to hit them with it. Like, you're not the first person, you're not the last person. You're not
hmm
gonna be either one of those. So the good thing is that there are those of us here that actually still care and are willing to help. But it's exhausting to me too to show you all of these avenues, and you have a way to left turn that avenue every single time that we want to talk about things. So I kind of had to adopt the, like, in my leadership style and whatever, like, that I'm here and I got you, and
hmm
I got big shoulders. I can pick you up and take you along with me if you want to be along the ride, but I'm not chasing that emotion anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't chase that emotion. If I come to you and I approach you and ask you how you're doing, and where's your head at, things like that, just give me the real, no bullshit truth of it. Don't give
hmm
me the him haw, chase me around type of stuff. If you're not doing
hmm
good, tell me you're not doing good. And
We're
if I
not
ask you
dating.
how I
We're
can help,
talking.
you say, yeah, right, yeah. If I can't help you, tell me I can't help you.
hmm
Or whatever. I'll help you get to whoever can. I I used to be very much a guy that's a fixer, right? All of us
Mm-hmm.
are. We want to fix a problem right now, and I had to kind of realize earlier that maybe I'm not the right guy to be in front of this person, but I am the right guy to help get them in front of the right person. Whatever that means. But if you keep left turning me and you keep swerving me, I'm just not going to chase your emotion anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's you physically making an effort to avoid it. You know,
Well, and because
which
there's no
there's
perfect answer
things to
for
be
any
said
of it.
about avoidant personalities and things, but right.
Yeah. There's no perfect answer. And I love the old expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like, anybody who's
Mm-hmm.
had kids knows that sensation very well. But
Yep.
it's hard for me when you won't even
We just
try.
forget about those little things, right? I always say this stupid little funny thing when I'm just kind of, the in the ambulance bay bullshitting, and people forget about the little things in life. And my joke is always, the trouble breathing patient, and they're like, "Oh, I can't breathe." And I'm like, "How old are you?" And they're like, 59. I'm like, "You've been doing it for 59 years. Keep doing it." And it's kind of the same thing. Where like, it's a joke, obviously, but like, so it's kind of the same thing. You've been all right for however long, and you've made it through every bad time in your life so far. So just keep doing it. It's going to be hard, but you got to keep doing it.
Hmm.
And I'm here to help. I've got medications to help, or I've got knowledge to help. I've got whatever to help. I'm here to help you do that. But you have to keep doing it.
Well, and everybody acts like every inconvenience is the end of the world. Like, I'm
Oh yeah.
35. I've been through some shit. Like, I've been through some shit. And guess what? I'm still here. I'm still doing okay. I'm not homeless. I have a job. I have a car. Like,
Hmm.
you're gonna be fine. Stop with the boo-hoo, poor me bullshit and pick your feet up and get to moving. Because guess what? The rest of the world doesn't give a shit whether you have your shit together or not. It's gonna
No,
keep rolling. So
and it
if
and it
you
will
got you
pass
got to
you
deal
by.
with it.
Yep.
Yep. It does not wait for you to
Hmm.
fix your bullshit.
My twin brother and I are very close, and he always. I recently went through some hard times in life, and um, he's always been a really good sounding board for me. And I won't go too much into him, but he's very good sounding board for me, and we're very close. But I kind of, during his hard times, I was like, man, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, and then he just looks at me, and he looks at me dead in the face, and he goes, "Now what?" And he just sits there. And that was probably the most powerful thing he could have done to me. He just goes, "Now what?" He said, "All that's great and it sucks, but now what?" You know. And he said that he had, um, I think it was an old army buddy of his or special forces guy or something that he's mentored by or something like that. Just said that, and he's like, "Now what?" I'm like, "All right,
Yeah.
cool. You went through that. It's over. What's the next step in your life? So now what has been kind of my thing. Like now what? So
Of course, it's a little cliched because everybody likes Jocko Willink. Everybody quotes him, but I do love his little monologue about oh, bad things are happening to you. Good. Something didn't go right. Good.
mm-hmm,
This is your chance to level up and to get
mm-hmm,
better. Bad shit's happening. Good. Suck it up,
yeah.
Buttercup. Like there's an element of the suck it up that I
Well,
agree
and you think
with.
about guys like Jocko. You think about guys like Jocko. He's a Navy SEAL. He's been through the suck, right? But
Hmm.
he was the Navy SEAL in charge of the team that was like kicking the streets of Fallujah during the big battle. I mean, there were a couple SEAL teams there, but he was the one that went out and said, "Hey, this is where they're at. That's where we're going." And he's the guy. He had all the famous SEAls with him. Whether you want to call him famous or not, but
Hmm.
Jocko's been there, done that. So, and nobody can deny that.
I've gotten to the point now where I look at bad shit happening as okay, this is just another opportunity for me to level up. Cool, let's go. Because guess what?
Hmm.
In a few weeks, I'm going to forget about this. This isn't going to be a thing anymore. It's not
Hmm.
permanent.
Hmm.
You mentioned, I want to switch gears just a little bit. We were talking about culture. You mentioned that you currently are in a unionized agency. Well, that's a bad word around here, unfortunately. Tell me about what that's like. What are the pros and cons of that? And how it impacts the day-to-day experience as a medic?
Day to day, it really doesn't. Um, but pros and cons wise, of course, I grew up in probably the same culture you did. Well, I mean, I
Hmm.
did grow up in the same culture you did. Union was a bad word. And
Hmm.
I think it becomes a bad word because the leadership that is accustomed to doing whatever they want to do can no longer do whatever they want to do. Because we have that ability to fight back. Our union. Um, we have a union contract. We were able to get some pretty hefty raises, things like that, so that was great. But we also have the ability to say, hey, wait a minute, this is what we agreed on a contract, and you're not fulfilling your side of the contract. For example, recently we had, I don't know what you want to call it. I guess we call it, I call it stomping ground, getting ready for a fight kind of thing with our management. And we've had a kind of an overtime, or not an overtime, but a mandatory overtime problem. And it was something that got to the point where we're like, guys, we are just tired. And we're like, if we stand together as a union and we look at the contract and we look and see our, because if we're just tired and we have that much overtime or mandatory and every part of the contract is being adhered to, then something else is wrong, right? It's not just people being lazy. It's not just management just filling seats and not caring. Well, it ended up being that we weren't following, or the management weren't following their side of things and all this stuff. So we, of course, went to them and we're like, here's the initial step. We're going to tell you that this is a problem. And we, these are things that we had talked to them about for months. So by the time it gets to like union action, it's not just so. So we geared up and we said, hey, we are prepared to take the following actions if you don't rectify this situation. And it got very quick responses. And the problem with, I guess the cons to it would be, the management is not always great at not reacting emotionally to those types of things, where as a union we can react very unemotionally because it's much more legalized and things like that. So it's not, we're mad at managers, so we're going to stomp ground. It's not that. It's saying, hey, we really are struggling, and these are things that are not being not happening that you agreed to. But the management on the flip side is sometimes hard for them to not react emotionally. So we had to get through that little bit of emotional, I don't want to say retaliation, but certainly probably was some. So we had to get through a little bit of that, and then the goal with the union is always to come to an agreement without any kind of grievance or legal action or things like that, right? And that should always be the goal of any kind of union fight, and I'm using fight loosely. The goal should always be to have both parties sit down and come to an agreement. But we knew that this one was going to be an ugly one, so we had already drafted up the grievance and how we were going to take care of it, and what deadlines we were going to give the management and all that kind of stuff. So in the end, we accomplished what we accomplished, and there was a reasonable negotiation, and there was a reasonable accommodations for both sides, and it worked out really well. So the union allows us to have those conversations that are not able to be had without it. Because let's say I had that specific conversation with a non-unionized management team, they're just gonna pony up and say, yeah, well, we're the boss, shut up. Either get in the truck and go do your job, get paid, or don't. We'll just fire you. Where the union, we can't just be fired on the dot. We can't, all this kind of stuff. It really helps us foster those conversations in a mostly healthy manner.
Can the unions become a mechanism to start to address the mental health issues, address some of the cultural issues, or is it truly just a, dealing with, pay, hours, circumstances, benefits, all of that kind of stuff?
That is a great question, and I think that if it ever is going to be, it's a long way off, because the union is very black and white. If it's not in the contract, it's hard to fight, or it's hard to do. It's hard to, or it's not in the negotiation agreement, because of the fact that when you're dealing with a union, it's all, there. If you get to the point of needing it, so for example, a grievance is filed, then the other party has 2 weeks to respond, and then the first party has 2 weeks to respond to that response, and then if nothing is accomplished, then it goes to lawyers in court and all that kind of stuff. So because of that process, it's a little too black and white, I think, at the moment. So long story short, I don't think so, but I also am not the most experienced union guy on the planet either. So
if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on YouTube at Paramedic AF, or you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at the Paramedic AF Show. You can catch up on the Daily Debrief, kind of a sub-show within the Paramedic AF Show, or you can watch our full-length episodes, including interviews and discussions on leadership, culture, personal wellness, mental health, everything related to daily life in EMS. Make sure you hit like and subscribe.